High intelligence is frequently viewed as a biological advantage, a guaranteed path to an easier, more successful life. Most people assume that superior cognitive processing equals superior happiness, but psychology shows the opposite. Research indicates that a highly active mind often acts as a double-edged sword, creating specific vulnerabilities that average minds rarely encounter. The gift is real, the cost is hidden. Society teaches that intelligence solves problems, yet neuroscience suggests that for the high IQ individual, the brain often manufactures problems that didn't exist in the first place. It is not a lack of ability that creates distress. It is the inability to stop the ability. This distinction explains the paradox of the intelligent mind. The better the processor, the more likely it is to overheat. First, there is the mechanism of overthinking. The brain simulates endless variables to predict the best outcome, but this simulation loop rarely shuts off. Then, a condition known as analysis paralysis emerges, where the abundance of options makes taking action impossible. Second is the struggle for connection. High-level cognitive function craves depth, abstraction, and complexity, but social evolution relies on small talk and simple heuristics. Then a disconnect occurs. The individual feels isolated in a crowd, not because they are alone, but because the frequency of communication is too shallow. Third is hypervigilance. The intelligent mind excels at pattern recognition, but this sensitivity detects nuances, negativity, dishonesty, and manipulation that others miss. Then, the environment feels perpetually hostile or unsafe. This constant state of alert is where the struggle begins to manifest physically. Fourth is the burden of expectation. Society labels intelligence as a resource, but this creates an external pressure to perform perfectly at all times. Then the psychological phenomenon of impostor syndrome takes hold. The fear isn't of failure itself, but of being exposed as not intelligent enough to justify the attention. Fifth is the boredom trap. A high-processing brain requires constant, complex data to maintain engagement. But the modern world is filled with repetitive routine and administrative tasks. Then the brain enters a conservation mode. This looks like laziness, but it is actually a biological defense against understimulation. Sixth is maladaptive perfectionism. The mind sees the optimal version of reality immediately, but the physical world cannot match that speed or precision. Then a gap forms between expectation and reality. This gap triggers frustration and burnout, because anything less than perfect is registered by the brain as a failure. Seventh is the compulsion to question. Intelligence demands evidence and logic, but most human structures rely on tradition, faith, and unspoken rules. Then friction arises with authority and social norms. The individual becomes an outsider by default, simply because they refuse to accept things at face value. Eighth, and perhaps most misunderstood, is emotional contagion. High intelligence is strongly correlated with high affective empathy, but this means the brain doesn't just observe pain, it simulates it. Then the individual absorbs the emotional weight of those around them. They carry a psychological load that does not belong to them. Common wisdom suggests these struggles are defects or a lack of emotional regulation. Psychology frames them differently. They are not bugs in the system. They are the unavoidable costs of high bandwidth processing. You cannot see the deeper layers of reality without also seeing the darkness that lies within them. High intelligence is not the possession of answers. It is the burden of seeing too many questions at once. The loneliness, the boredom, and the analysis are simply the noise generated by a machine that never powers down. Understanding this mechanism changes the experience entirely. This channel explores those hidden mechanics because most explanations stop too early.